This video is how to solve simultaneous equations using the substitution method. So there's three methods for solving simultaneous equations. There's graphically, substitution, and elimination. This video just focuses on a few examples using substitution. Okay, so for our first example, we have 2x minus y equals 3 and negative x minus y plus 12 equals 0. So our first step is just label these equations and just label them equation 1 and equation 2. And that just makes our working out a little bit easier to follow. Okay, our next step is to rearrange one of these equations to make either x or y the subject. This one here, I've decided to rearrange to make y in equation 1 the subject. Now, when we're trying to choose what to make the subject, we look for any x or y that has a positive 1 in front of it first. That's going to be the easiest to do algebraically. And if we can't do that, we can find something with a negative 1 in front of it, which is what we see this y has here. We see that's also the case for x here and y here. So any of those would be good options. But technically, you could just choose anything and it'd just be a little more algebra, nothing too drastic. Okay, so we have 2x minus y equals 3, so I'm rearranging that to make y the subject. So my first step to try and get y a little bit closer to being by itself is to subtract 2x from both sides. So on the left-hand side, the 2x's cancel out because 2x minus 2x is just 0, so they go away, so we're just left with negative y. And on the right-hand side, we have 3 minus 2x. Now we notice the thing we need to move so that y is by itself is that negative. And we don't have a number written in front of something in algebra. We essentially have a 1. So I'm just going to write that on for now. So we can think of it as like negative 1y. That's why we're dividing through both sides by negative 1, because we want to try and move that negative 1 away from being in front of y, so that y is by itself. So we divide both sides by negative 1. And over here, the negative 1's cancel out, so we're just left with y. Then over here, I've just written this as a fraction. So 3 minus 2x divided by negative 1. And then I've brought negative 1 at the front of a set of brackets. And when we bring negative 1 at the front of brackets, we essentially just change the sign. So what was positive 3 becomes negative 3. What was negative 2x becomes positive 2x. And then what can happen is these negative 1s can just cancel out. So then we're just left with negative 3 plus 2x. So that's y. And we call this equation 3. And because we made equation 3 from equation 1, for the next step, we want to bring in equation 2. And we see that here. So we're going to substitute our equation 3 into equation 2. And that brings this equation into the mix. So every time we see a y here, we replace it with our negative 3 plus 2x. And that's just what's happened here. And then for step 4, we tidy this up. So we have negative x, then we expand this out using some multiplication rainbows. So we have the negative, we can think of a negative 1 if we want, like negative 1 times negative 3 becomes positive 3. Negative 1 times times 2x is negative 2x. Then we just have this plus 12 equals 0. And then we tie this up a bit more. So negative x minus 2x is negative 3x. Then 3 plus 12 is 15. And then we want to get x by itself. So first of all, we have to move this 15. So we subtract 15 from both sides. Over here, the 15s cancel out because 15 minus 15 is 0. Then over here, we have 0 minus 15, which gives us negative 15. Now to get x by itself, we need to move this negative 3. Right now, that negative 3 is being times to x. So we have to do the opposite of times, which is dividing. So we divide both sides by negative 3. And we see that here. So negative 3x divided by negative 3 just leaves us with x by itself. And negative 15 divided by negative 3 gives us 5. Okay, and now we want to substitute that x equals 5 into our equation 3. Technically, we could substitute into equation 1 or 2 as well, but substituting into equation 3, which we're going to see, is really easy for the algebra. We have very few steps. So equation 3 is our y equals negative 3 plus 2x, and I've just replaced the x with 5. And then to tie that up, I just go 2 times 5 is 10, so we have negative 3 plus 10, and then negative 3 plus 10 is 7, so y equals 7. So now we have our solution, which is x equals 5 and y equals 7. Okay, here's another example of the simultaneous equation solved using substitution. So we have x equals y plus 3 and 10y equals 3x. So our first step is to label these equations. So we just label them equation 1 and equation 2. Okay, our next step is to rearrange one of our equations so x or y is by itself. And we notice here, x is already by itself in equation 1. So we can kind of skip this step. And we can just call equation 1 equation 3. That's already been done for us. So that's nice. Okay, step 3 is to substitute our equation 3, which like we just said is just going to be our equation 1 for this example, into equation 2. Now we're substituting into equation 2 because we haven't really dealt with this equation yet in this question. So we want to have a way to bring that other equation into the mix. So we have 10y equals 3 times y plus 7. our y plus 7 is replacing the x, just from there. And then we just tidy this up. So we use some multiplication rainbows to try and expand out these brackets. So 10y equals 3 times y is 3y. 3 times 7 is 21. And then we want to get y by itself. So first we need to get the y's together. So subtract 3y from both sides to move this 3y from over here to being with the 10y. So 10y minus 3y is 7y. The 3y's cancel out because 3y minus 3y is 0. So we just have to 21. And then we want to get y by itself. There's a 7 in front we need to move. Right now 7 and y are being times together. Because when we write things next to each other in algebra, we're timesing them together. So we have to do the opposite of timesing, which is divide. So we divide both sides by 7. So the 7's cancel out over here, so we're just left with y. And over here we have 21 divided by 7, which is 3. Okay, and then we just substitute that y equals 3 into equation 3. And our equation 3 was just our x equals y plus 7, which coincidentally was our equation 1 for this question, because it was a nice, easy question for us. So we replace y with a 3. So we have x equals 3 plus 7. Then we just tidy that up by putting that together. So 3 plus 7 equals 10. So now we have our answer, which is x equals 10 and y equals 3. Okay, last example here, we have 2x equals 13 minus y, and 2x equals 9y minus 7. Now, there's different ways to solve these questions. Because algebra has lots of options, we're just going to stick with a consistent method throughout these questions. But you might see a shortcut that could solve it a little bit faster. Okay, so for these questions, we've been going labeling, so we label it 1 and 2, as done here. Then step 2, we rearrange one of the equations to try and make either x or y the subject. Now I notice here we have 2's in front of these x's, which we don't love to try and make x the subject in that case. There's a 9 in front of this y, so I probably wouldn't make this y the subject. But this y has a -1. So I think that seems like the best one to try and make the subject. We're just less likely to have fractions that way. Okay, so we've got equation 1, which is 2x equals 13 minus y. We want to rearrange this to get y by itself. So we start by subtracting 13 from both sides. So 2x minus 13, then 13 minus y minus 13. The 13's cancel out over here, so we're just left with -y. And over here we have 2x minus 13. Now we have this minus in front of y. We do want to move that, and we can also think of this as -1 if we like, because when we don't write a letter in front of our algebraic pronumerals, so like x and y and all the letters, there's an invisible little 1 in front of it. So here we can think of it as like a -1 in front. That's being times. We have to do the opposite of times, which is divide. So we divide both sides by -1. Okay. So the -1 cancels out over here. So we're just left with y. Then over here we have 2x minus 13 over -1. Now I've just put this as pulled out -1 as a factor. So when we pull out -1 outside of brackets, they swap in signs. So what was 2x becomes -2x. What was -13 becomes +13. It's like +13. And then these -1s can cancel out. And let's draw that on. So these -1s can cancel. So then we're just left with -2x plus 13 equals y. Okay, so then y equals -2x plus 13 is this written out just with the y on the left, which I think is a nicer way to write things out. And then we just label that equation 3. Okay, step 4, we're going to substitute equation 3 into equation 2. Now we're using equation 2 because so far we've just been rearranging equation 1. So we need to bring equation 2 into the mix. So we replace the y here with -2x plus 13, which is our equation 3. And then we just tidy that up. So 2x equals 9 times -2x, which is -18x. Then 9 times 13, which is 117. That's okay, we need to use a calculator for that step. And then -7. So we have 2x equals -18x, then 117 minus 7 is 110. So that's what we have there. And then we just want to get the x's together. So we're going to add 18x to both sides. And we're adding 18x because right now it has a minus in front of it, so it's being subtracted. So we need to do the opposite of subtracting, which is adding. We go plus 18x on both sides. On the left, we have 2x plus 18x, which becomes 20x. Over here, the -18x and the 18x are going to cancel out because they become 0. So we just got the 110 left. Now we want to get x by itself, so I need to move this 20. Right now the 20 is being times by the x, so we need to divide both sides by 20. So 20x divided by 20, the 20's cancel out, we're left with x, and 110 divided by 20 gives us 5.5. And then we substitute x equals 5.5 into our equation 3. And equation 3 was our y equals negative 2x plus 13. So just replace the x with 5.5. Now we just tidy this up. So y equals negative 2 times 5.5, which negative 2 times 5.5 is negative 11. Then we have plus 13. Negative 11 plus 13 is 2. So now we have our answer, which is x equals 5.5 and y equals 2.